The sole purpose of this video is to provide a basic overview and orientation of your new apparatus. This video is not intended to act as or replace individualized driver-operator training. Individual fire departments may base guidelines, policies, and procedures tailored for best practices. Pierce Manufacturing and Hughes Fire Equipment representatives are not liable for injuries caused from acts resulting from actions inconsistent with the information provided within this video and/or accompanying manuals. Refer to the Operation and Maintenance Manual for complete details relating to the components and features of this apparatus. Only trained personnel should operate this vehicle or perform maintenance. You are responsible for learning how to operate this fire apparatus under all conditions without having to refer to the manual while operating at an emergency incident. This video will discuss types of warnings and caution labels. It is your responsibility to locate and identify each of the labels and understand the importance and associated hazards. Warning labels will point out procedure that must be taken or action that must be avoided to guard against the possibility of serious injury or death. Caution labels will advise you that there is a risk of damage to property if certain precautions are not followed. Continuous training, reviewing of operation and service manuals, developing good standardized practices will assist driver operators with a more complete understanding of the components and operation of this fire apparatus. As the driver operator of this vehicle, you are responsible for understanding the function of each component of the apparatus, maintaining control of the fire apparatus at all times while in operation. Make operational and functional changes while operating at an emergency without having to read operator's instructions or safety warning labels. Operate manual override and emergency shutdown procedures immediately if a component fails to operate properly. Components location may vary with each Pierce fire apparatus. Review the exact location of each component prior to operation. Major inconsistencies between your vehicle and the information contained in this video should be directed to your sales representative. Safe operation of any vehicle is the responsibility of the driver operator. You must learn the location and function of all controls, switches, gauges, valves, inlets, and discharges. Due to a higher center of gravity, heavy trucks have a significantly higher rollover tendency than other types of vehicles. To reduce the risk of rollover, avoid making sharp turns, excessive speed, and avoid abrupt maneuvers. In the event of a rollover crash, an unbelted person is significantly more likely to become injured or die than a person wearing a seatbelt. In the event of a crash, unbuckled occupants can also become a hazard to other occupants, as they may be thrown around inside the cab. Seatbelts are required while in operation. Please refer to your warranty certificates for details and information enclosed in your manuals. Customer-installed equipment must be mounted to withstand road travel and comply with NFPA 1901. Modifications such as drilling holes or welding to structural frame components of the chassis are not permitted. Contact Pierce for instruction and review of non-structural sheet metal or other dissimilar metals for modification. Follow the radio installation guide for further assistance on installing or mounting electronics. Before placing your new apparatus into service, perform a primary inspection of key components of the apparatus, including all fluid levels, anti-lock braking systems, electronic stability control, and automatic traction control. Weigh your apparatus to ensure that it conforms to axle and brake ratings. Never exceed the gross axle rating printed on the label inside the cab. Exceeding these ratings could lead to reduced component life, personal injury, or death. Review the use of auxiliary braking systems, compression brake, exhaust brake, electronic retarder, and hydraulic retarder. Before placing the apparatus in service, refer to the operational maintenance manuals. Information on the operation and maintenance functions for the components such as the pump, pressure governor, and foam systems, along with other options, is provided in either the Pierce manuals and/or other manufacturer support information delivered with the apparatus. If you need more information, please contact Hughes Fire Equipment. Congratulations, Sandy Fire, job number 31187. Please utilize this job number when referencing your fire apparatus with Hughes Fire Equipment or Pierce Manufacturing. Let's get started with a basic overview and orientation of your apparatus. Starting in the front bumper, you have two attachment points at the bore section. In the actual bumper itself, you have the low and high beam headlights. In the middle subsection of the bumper, there is two mounted air horns. Moving up from that, on the front bumper is a 1.5-inch discharge port. Moving to the driver's side, you have a mechanical siren. And moving to the very center, there is a tub for hose with a lid cover storage. Moving up from that, we have a right and left turn signal indicators. Moving inside of that, you have 4 emergency lights. Moving up from that there, you have 2 windshield wipers. At the very top of the apparatus, you have a light bar. Across the center, you have a forward-facing floodlight. You have 5 running lights. Looking at a little detail of the front discharge, this is a water foam outlet. This is the tub, which is covered in the front bumper area. Looking at a general view of the front and driver's side of the apparatus. Moving to the pump panel side, you have 2 2.5-inch discharge ports. You have a large diameter intake. You can see where the black plug is plugged in. That is your shore power. In addition, with a 2.5-inch intake. Looking at the lower section of the pump panel, you have number 1 driver's side discharge drain and number 3 driver's side discharge drain. In addition, with a draft foam tank lever, at the very bottom of that is a foam intake. To the right hand side is the manifold drain, the pump drain, and the auxiliary drain. Just moving up from that is the air inlet, which is an auto eject. Looking at the side view of the apparatus, at the very top is a fully extendable floodlight. You also have cross-through storage for your cross lay for hose lay number 1, and number 2 is also foam and water. Additional long storage in this area with a belt strap going across for safety, in addition with a 2.5-inch cross lay, which is foam and water capable. Looking at general view of your pump panel, let's get started with a little bit more in depth of that. Looking on the left-hand side, this is your Pierce operational maintenance schedule. This has to do with the placarding of your apparatus and the PSIs for that. Moving to the right-hand side, this is your Foam A tank level indicator. Just above that is the engaged pump light. Moving across is the master intake. Moving across farther to the right is the master discharge. And on the far right-hand side, you have illuminating light for the PMC fault, and just below that is an audible alarm sensor. Moving just below the master and master discharge intake and discharge is your test ports for vacuum and pressure. I would like you to take and pay close attention to the warning labels that are associated on this apparatus and throughout. Please take an opportunity to read those and refer to the manual. A little bit closer view of this here. This indicates your job number, the pump type number, and it also indicates when it was tested, how it turned out. At 150 psi, 200 psi, and 250 psi. Also at the very bottom is the governed speed at 1,970 RPMs. Moving to the left-hand side of that, these are your discharge valves.
They are color-coded to each valve, to each discharge port. The number 1 discharge is water and foam. You can see that by the indication of the red placard also. This is the front discharge, cross lay number 1, cross lay number 2, a 2.5-inch cross lay, the driver's side pre-connect A, in addition with a reel discharge. All the way to the far right-hand side is the Pierce throttle system. It gives information on RPMs. It also has engine information, and there's also just below that is the tank level to give you an idea how much water you have in your tank. Just below that is the twist right or left for increase or decrease in throttle, and in the center is emergency shutdown. Looking on the left-hand side, this is your Pierce Husky foam system. This is the closed open or closed in the rear inlet indicator. You also have a primer rear intake, and you also have an auto prime for your main fire pump. You can either turn it on or you can use it to prime mode. There's also a driver's side pre-connected line B and a large diameter deluge discharge. Moving all the way to the left-hand side, this is your tank fill and recirculating line. Moving over to the next one is your tank to pump. As you see the 3 illuminated lights here, these are for your large diameter driver's main inlet, and just below that, those are your 2 discharge locations for mechanic. Moving downward to the reel discharge, this is a turn valve for volume, and we have your primer drain. Once again, this is a turn valve. In the center, you have the rear inlet air bleed and the driver manual inlet air bleed. Moving to the right also is an access panel. Down at the very bottom, all the way across, are the color-coded drains for all of your discharge ports. On the left-hand side of the panel are the driver's side floodlights, passenger side floodlights, and the rear scene lights. This can also be activated on the rear of the apparatus to turn on the rear scene lights. You have 3 future locations for additional switch. Currently they're blanks. On the side of the apparatus there are 2 floodlights in the upper corners. You also have 2 emergency lights on the body. In addition, within the covered compartments here, this is your DEF fill location. This is your diesel fill location. The long compartment here is bottle storage. You have a marker light both in the midship section and also in the very rear. This is just past the roll-up door of the pump panel. There are 2 fixed shelves in this location. This is a close-up shot of the DEF fill. Close-up shot of the diesel fill. This is the bottle storage with 2 safety straps. There are 2 foldable wheel chocks located in the rear. In the same compartment just above the wheel chocks, there is a shore line outlet. It's a 15 amp shore power. There is adjustable shelves in this rear compartment. As a generalized view looking from the rear, you have 2 low work lights or step lights. There are 4 lit marking lights. This is your reverse section light in the cluster of tail lights. This is your right and left turn. Brake lights. You have 180 emergency lights, a floodlight to the rear. Just above that, there are 2 emergency lights. This is the work light, turns on the rear scene, rear discharge. This is a sliding ladder to gain access to the upper section of the apparatus. There are safety labels in this location. Please familiarize yourself with those. There are grip and handrails in this location also. You have 2 long compartments for long storage. In the rear center compartment, there is a movable center shelf. a pull-out bottom shelf with LED lights. This is the rear scene light switch in the back, which is also accessible on the side of the pump panel. This is the rear inlet. You have a 14-foot extension ladder. 24-foot extension ladder, 14-foot roofer. 2 spots for long poles or pike poles. A 10-foot attic or folding ladder. There is a rear attachment point on the rear of the apparatus below. There is a pull-out step. There are 3 running lights in the rear. There is long storage for your hard suction lines. Moving to the right of that, there is pre-connected lines, 2 of those to the rear. To the opposite side of that, there is long storage for hose. Moving to the left-hand side, just above the hard suction lines, there is work lights for storage location. You have a fully enclosed hose bed. Moving just above the hose bed storage, there is a fill tank for foam A and the water fill for your main tank. Just above that, there is hydraulic fluid level here to fill. This is the hose roller. Moving to the right-hand side, this is where your deluge attaches. Moving further forward, you have work lights in addition with the telescoping lights. This is the real manual handle. You have fans for your air conditioning. Notice the 2 no-step locations. This is for non-foot traffic area. Looking at the passenger side of the apparatus, there is a pull-to-open rear inlet air bleed. There is an adjustable shelf. There is 3 bottle storage, 2 with safety straps and additional smaller bottle storage above that. Once again, 3 additional bottle storage locations here. You have adjustable shelving in the center compartment. Also be advised of the exhaust and the heat that it can generate. Be cautious and read the warning labels. There is a pull to drain for the rear inlet just below that. This is also your internal relief valve. There is also an indicator for open and closed on your remote valve. This is the manifold drain, pull to drain. This is an open section for your pegboard for storing of tools on both sides. You have adjustable shelving in this location. Just below that and the latch below. This lifts up. And I think there's another slide here that will demonstrate this is the cab lift, the raise lower switch, and the activate switch. The cover is just to protect the switch from damage. There is shore power outlet. This is once again a 15 amp outlet. Looking at the passenger side pump panel, there are a variety of warning labels. Please familiarize yourself with those warning labels. In the center here is the large diameter intake. Moving to the right hand side, this is a 2.5-inch discharge port. This is a large diameter discharge port. Moving to the left hand side is a 2.5 intake. Notice the hole in the section here. This is for your manual overrides of those motors for the valves. Same thing with this is a manual override. Moving to the very bottom, these are your drain valves for the subsequent discharge ports. Once again, this is the passenger side auxiliary inlet. These are the drain valves associated with each of the inlets and manifold drain and pump drain. This is an air intake. From looking at the driver's side, there are warning labels that I'd like you to take a close look at. They're both at the knee level and also at the ankle level. You have an opportunity to take a look at those, be helpful. This is your voltage regulator for your Pro charging system. This is the manual cab tilt behind the driver's seat. Also located is a front floodlight, which is a foot pedal activation. Just above that is the battery switch for on-off, and it's a quarter turn in the red indicator switch located here. Moving upward from that, there are an ignition switch. Moving to right is the start switch. There are also 2 future blank spaces that you can add additional switches for future items. There is the all-wheel drive engage switch, and there is a front axle all-wheel drive engaged indicator light. Moving up from those locations, there is the SRS transmission diagnostic port, an engine ABS diagnostic port. There are indicator lights for the engine diagnostic and an ABS diagnostic switch. Also located on the right-hand side is your manufactured by Pierce placard. Indicates the October 2017 manufacture date. The job number also is located here. The chassis type is an Aero XT. Moving on down to the VIN number, which is located here. And there are fluid capacities and information regarding the amounts and also the types for those fluids in that section. Looking at your dash panel, you have an oil pressure switch, a water temperature, transmission temperature, voltage. Moving to the right is the tachometer. Moving to the right hand side of the steering wheel, front air brakes for the PSI in those, rear air brakes and the PSI in those specific. You have a DEF level. Just above that to the left hand side is the miles per hour or speedometer. And at the very top is your fuel gauge. Looking on the right-hand side of the driver's seat, there is a variety general view of this location, and we'll break that down just a little bit more as we go into that. This is the Allison push transmission pad. Moving just above that is the headlights. Moving to that is the dimmer for the bright and dim of the panel lights. These are your wiper on-off switch. This is the wiper on-off switch as far as how fast the washer blades will move back and forth. This is the OK to engage the high idle indicator. And on the right-hand side, the red switch is engaging the high idle. Just below that is your climate control. Moving to the next set of rocker switches, your engine on-off brake, your engine brake level as far as high, medium, or low. You have a stationary OK to pump while rolling indicator switch. You have a water pump switch, a foam switch, and a heat mirror switch. Also located in the cab is the ability to check the pump pressure. Also to the right of that is the tank vision, which is the indicator for how much water you have in your tank. Also moving to the right is the Pierce tank vision for your foam A tank to give you an idea how much foam you have in there. It's required to pump in neutral in this apparatus. You also have your mirror control for flat and convex mirrors. Moving to the other side of that, this is your maxi brake or parking brake. And as you see the labels just above here, these are warning labels indicating that there are wires behind this and to be cautious if accessing that location. This is your load manager. This is your load manager indicator lights. This is your DFP regen switch. And this is your DFP regen inhibit switch in red. Looking further down, you have the driver's side window, passenger side window, driver's side cab window, and passenger side cab window. Those are the controls that are accessed for moving up and down the windows. You also have two ceiling mounted fans. Once again, take note of the warning labels. Also on the A pillar is located the serial number, which is affixed to the actual frame. Also take note of the height, length, and gross vehicle weight ratings. These are located on the driver's side. Just above the driver's side to the left-hand side, you can see that. And we'll go through a couple of these switch panels here also. We have the emergency master. We have a roof light, front warning, side warning, lower rear warning, and upper rear warning. Moving to the panel just to the right of that is the Opticom switch, high beam flashers, the electronic siren, mechanical siren, and the mechanical siren brake in red. Moving once again to the right, we have the front flood, driver's side flood, passenger side flood, rear scene, and the perimeter lights. This is the Pierce indication for seat belts. If you see the person sitting there and it's in green, then the person is seat belted in. If red, they may need a belt located. This is also the pull for rope air horn. There is also a light indicator for an open compartment light or door. Moving to the passenger side seat, there is a siren brake just to the left of the occupant. There are two 12-volt USB charger locations. There is spare wiring behind this, and to be cautious when accessing that point. And there's also the vehicle data recorder port. Looking above the passenger's head, you have your Whelen siren for your electronic siren and PA system. You have the front flood, driver's side flood, passenger side flood, rear scene, perimeter, and a mechanical siren. You have a Panasonic Weatherband Sirius XM MP3 player. This is on the passenger side. This is your fluid refill for windshield wipers. This is just a general view looking from the back or from the front to the back. This is the access point to access the engine for checking coolant for transmission and oil. There is shore power also both on the right and left hand side in your apparatus. This is 110 power. This is also 12-volt power. This is a USB power. You also have a refrigerator in your apparatus. Congratulations, Sandy Fire, job number 31187. Please contact your salesperson if you have any questions regarding this apparatus or any of the content in this video. Thank you.